Hi everybody, I just wanted to make you a quick video here on a Friday. I was responding to a lot of you with regard to the discussion board on funding, and a lot of you were giving great ideas, and a lot of you did mention grants, and I thought this was a nice chance for me to share some of my outside experiences with grants and also help to encourage you on how to educate yourself and then kind of how to start and some of the inside tips. When I started at Fort Hays, I had not taken any workshops on grants. I knew that they existed, I knew that they were great, but I knew that there was a lot of technical components, and it actually kind of scared me. So when I did come onto the Fort Hays campus, they offered a lot of workshops, and I immediately jumped on the chance to go to a lot of the workshops that they offer through actual department here on campus. And so I serve on a lot of boards, and a lot of those boards do actually function on grants, and we also give out grants. And so I've gotten to see both sides of that from a board's perspective, as well as I've applied for internal and external grants here at Fort Hays. So the first thing I would tell you is if you are interested in grants, there are so many, just like scholarships, that go unused that a lot of people don't apply. And so one of the things you can do is, first of all, educate yourself on what grants are out there. Find a person, maybe a resource center at your school or within the area that you're working, and see if there's someone who has resources, isn't an expert. More than likely, if you educate yourself by taking a class on how to write grants, that person will have resources that they can pinpoint or show you where to go to start accessing some of these ideas on just where to find grants and how to mold your goals and objectives for what you want grant money for into these different grant areas, because you could spend days and days just searching for grants. So the first thing I would do is ask yourself why you want the grant, what are the goals and objectives that you plan to meet with the grant, and then start looking for grants based on that. Hopefully after you've taken a couple workshops on grant writing, you realize that the place to start for grant writing is at the local and state level. There's tons of local, county, and area-wide grants. For instance, in Western Kansas, we have grants that are focused on the Dane G. Hansen Foundation, and they give out community grants for community improvement. They give out local scholarships, and they also give out education scholarships. So if you're from certain counties in Kansas, they will actually give you grants based on that. And so those are things to check, is small area grants and then state grants. And a lot of the state level grants that people apply for in this area would be like health grants, where they combine reading and exercise. And a lot of those are fairly small, but a lot of those can be fairly large. Again, it depends on what you're going to go for and what you want to use it for. So that's what I would do as far as a few tips and tricks, is get the education, find the person. Probably the person who's educating you will have a pretty good idea of where to start looking for grants based on what you need. Some other inside tips that I've learned is when I get ready to write a grant, I go back from previous years, specifically last year, and look to see what funding for that year they actually put out. So what grants did they fund? And usually they'll list that actual grant and the entire application that someone submitted, so you can learn what they wrote about, how they wrote it, what the content specifically looked at, and then that gives you an idea of what that board or that grant committee is actually looking at when they do assign that money for that next year. So look at past grants, look at what they funded. The other thing you really need to be concerned with is when you do get grants, you start dealing with $5, $6, up to $10,000, $20,000 for some of these smaller grants. And I say smaller because in education, just recently, probably 5 or 6 grants across the board here at Fort Hays, people are getting $250,000 to $500,000 grants through the National Science Foundation. Those are huge grants. They take a lot of skill in writing them, and it's usually more people doing the writing than just one person. So I say start small, get the experience, and then look big. You need to decide who's in charge of the money. Is the district office or someone inside of your business in charge of it? Because you have to have dual control on grant spending and grant money, and you have to account for it. So if you're not prepared to do that, then you also need to think about who is in charge of this. So check with your district and find out, have people gotten grants, and who helps to take care of those grants, and making sure the money's distributed. Another thing to do is make sure that your district already doesn't have a grant. And when I say that, I know that with the state of Kansas, they give out Kansas Health Foundation grants for all kinds of stuff. You'd be surprised how you can get a foundation grant from the Health Foundation here in Kansas, how easy it can be, but they only give out one per district. So you have to really be careful with that as well. Sometimes it's one per school. So just check into that at district office. Again, ask someone who's in charge of funding and grants at your district office and see, is there any grant that's currently existing? So those are just some quick tips and tricks that I wanted to tell you about, how to kind of get started. Another thing I will tell you about grants is as you start writing them, there is a lot of technical writing, and just the way they're presented and the spelling is immediately something that would be a turnoff if there's grammar and spelling errors. So really edit it, have an outside person edit it, because sometimes it can come down to things so small that it's not the content, it's the presentation that can discount you. Lastly, on grants, don't stop just applying for one because you don't get accepted. You have to keep trying, especially for some of those larger grants. You may put in 5 grant apps over a 2-year period, and one of them may be funded. But again, that's $5,000 to $10,000 for your classroom or school that you didn't have before. So I would encourage you to apply. Also at Fort Hays, we do have some grant writing courses. So if you're interested or want to try to find a schedule, I can provide that link for you if you want to email me. I think that's all I have for you. I wanted to tell you to have a great weekend. It's a busy week here at Fort Hays. It's homecoming festivities as well as our local high school. Public high school has homecoming this weekend, so it's incredibly busy around here, but it's awesome. So have a great weekend, and I will talk to you next week. Take care. Bye.